So you notice that there is a bit of a different setup for this video compared to the video that I've done before. And you're right, it is a different setup. And I am actually recording this from my desktop, and that, I wasn't going to plan to record this on my desktop if I didn't actually left my laptop from the office today when I go to work, and that is why the only option I have left in terms of recording this preview is from the desktop. Now, recording from the desktop is not a bad idea, but the problem is the mic that I usually record my video, unfortunately it does not work on my desktop, and that the sound that you are actually hearing is actually from the webcam, and the webcam kind of microphone is really, really bad. So I do apologize if the voice quality of this video is absolutely awful, but it's unfortunate the fact that I forgot my laptop from the office, and that I didn't want to delay this video to tomorrow because I want to make sure that when I get back from work tomorrow that I immediately go to bed, because I have to wake up 3 in the morning to go to Denver on Saturday to watch the Quakes take on the Rapids on the road. And speaking of which, let's actually talk about that game, as the first game that I am going to be talking about in this preview is the Quakes versus the Rapids. And also, before I actually begin talking about this game, for those of you wondering what happened to the first 7 games that I previewed it, well, I already done that yesterday, and that I, of course, will leave a link in the description below in terms of part 1 of the preview, and I'll also make sure I'll leave a link in the description of part 2 of the preview in the video that I did yesterday. Or you can, of course, wait until the end of the video, where there's usually going to be like a box that will show the part 1 of the previews that I've done for this weekend's action. And going back to what I said about previewing the match between the Quakes and the Rapids, well, the Rapids are coming into this game with a record of 6-5-12, and despite the fact that they won big in their last game against Montreal, as they won 6-3 against the Impact, they're still dead last in the Western Conference. I mean, it's quite kind of funny, the fact that you, of course, score 6 goals against an opponent and that this was a big win for you. The only problem is you stay dead last in the table, and that you don't really move above the table. Now, with a win against the Quakes, I'm pretty sure that they, of course, will go above Vancouver in terms of not being in the basement of the table, and that the Rapids does have 2 games in hand over Vancouver in terms of not being in the basement of the Western Conference. But they're going to be playing against a Quakes team that is 11-5-7, and unfortunately the Quakes winning run comes to an end as they drew not 0-0 to Columbus, but actually drew 1-1 against the Columbus Crew at home. And in terms of injuries and suspension for Colorado, Courtney Form, Declan Wynn, and Tim Howard is confirmed to be out for this game. While for the Quakes, Godoy is still out with that injury that he suffered back in the Gold Cup. And I also put questionable Espinoza there, and I know even though this was not listed on the injury report on the MLS website, the reason why I decided to put that down on the board is because, after what happened last week, where Espinoza, of course, went off after he, of course, suffered a nasty kind of challenge from David Accam, that, obviously he definitely felt a lot of pain in terms of how his foot kind of almost went sideways, and almost felt like it was his foot probably just completely broke after that crunching challenge. And it's also worth noting the fact that there is good news, the fact that it looked like Espinoza is not going to have like a broken foot or a torn ACL after suffering that injury, and that Almeida did kind of confirm that it wasn't really a serious injury, which I think we dodged a huge bullet in this situation, because when you look at it in the first hand, it looked like for sure Espinoza has broke his ankle and that he is going to be out for a very long time. But thankfully, that is not the case, and that, we'll see whether or not if he's going to be fit enough to play in this game, and it will be pretty crucial of whether or not if he does play this game against the Rapids, because, well, you know, the Quakes are playing against the Rapids, who is dead last in the table, and while the Quakes are, of course, playing probably the easiest game out of this free game road trip that they are about to endure, the Rapids are very good at home, and that the Quakes do not have a very good record against the Rapids, especially in their last couple of meetings at Dick's Sporting Goods Park. And the fact that if Espinoza is not going to be available in this game, yeah, that's going to really hurt our attack. And we saw it in the last game. Once Espinoza came off of that injury, our attack just could not do anything whatsoever. So I do fear that of course would be the case in this game if Espinoza isn't available. But having said that, you know, for the Quakes, not only I'm hoping that this team, of course, make the playoffs, but I also hope that maybe they can get home field advantage. And if they want to achieve both of those things by the end of the season, they have to win this game against the Rapids on the road. Now, moving on into the next match is going to be Portland. So the Timbers are playing against the Whitecaps, and the Timbers, their record is 9-4-9 and currently just below the red line in 8th place, while the Whitecaps is 5-9-11, and Portland will be playing their first of what would be 10 straight games at home, and that this is really kind of the stretch where we are expecting the Timbers to really booster their way up the table, because this is where they're going to get pretty much every single home games that they will have this season. Now, they start this stretch of first of 10 straight home games with a relatively easy opponent, with the fact that, you know, the Whitecaps are near the bottom of the Western Conference. Although the Whitecaps did beat FC Cincinnati in the last matches, they won 2-1 away in that game. And in terms of injuries and suspension for the Timbers, Farfan and Tanilla is both out in this game, and for Vancouver, Kimmery, Bangora, and Donnell Henry is going to be out for this game. But there is no doubt that I think Portland is going to be heavy favorites in this, and obviously Portland is coming off with some very disappointing last couple of games, with them on Wednesday losing to Minnesota in the U.S. Open Cup semifinal, and then also losing to the same team just 3 days ago with a bit of a controversial penalty. So yeah, they're definitely going to be coming into this game angry, and that they really want to trying to forget about the disappointment that they had in Minnesota last week, and try to get all 3 points to get back above the red line. Now, moving on into the next match is the Sunday fixture. And remember how in the beginning of the video I said that there was going to be 3 Sunday games? Yeah, that was actually incorrect, and that there was actually going to be 4 Sunday games that is going to happen. And these Sunday games are pretty marquee kind of matchup, and we start off with the first Sunday game, which is probably going to be the game of the week, and maybe right aside with LAFC and the Red Bulls as the game of the week. And that, of course, is Atlanta United versus NYCFC. And last year, this was really the game of the century. And that, you know, last year, both of these teams were in the top 2 of the Eastern Conference. Both of these teams play some of the most beautiful soccer that you will ever see. And when both of these teams meet each other last year, it was a 2-2 draw. And it was probably one, if not the most exciting soccer game that I have ever seen in MLS. And, you know, coming into this one for both of these teams, Atlanta is currently second, and that their record is 12-3-9, while NYCFC have got themselves into 3rd place with a record of 10-8-4. And NYCFC just a couple of hours ago beat Houston at home, and they won 3-2 in that game, and it was not a very pretty game for NYCFC. In fact, they were on the cusp of dropping points at home against a Dynamo team that didn't do well is not a team that do well on the road, and that in that game they had majority of the game spending down in 10 men, and that NYCFC had a man advantage, and that it looked like a 2-2 draw was going to be an embarrassing result for NYCFC at home. But fortunately, they were able to snatch one late, and that they have now moved up to 3rd place in the Eastern Conference. And Atlanta, of course, won 3-0 at home against the Galaxy. They, of course, are now in 2nd place, and I believe are only 3 points behind Philly in terms of the top spot, and that they have a game in hand over Philly in terms of that battle for the top spot in the Eastern Conference. Injuries and suspension for Atlanta, Kratz, Brett Shea, and Bello is going to be all out for this game. Oh, and also Brandon Vasquez is another player that is going to be out for this game. And the questionable player that is going to be in this game, and whether or not if he's going to start, is going to be Joseph Martinez, and that is a very big kind of question mark coming into this game, because Joseph Martinez, he didn't play on Wednesday in that U.S. Open Cup win where Atlanta was able to beat Orlando City, and he did suffer a knee injury during the Monday training session, which is the reason why he didn't play in that midweek U.S. Open Cup semifinal game against Orlando City. Now, the question is he going to be fit enough to be playing in this big game against NYCFC? And there is no doubt that if Atlanta do not have Joseph Martinez available in this game, that is definitely a massive blow to this team. Now, for NYCFC, Skelly, Tajuri Shradi, and Ben Sweat will not be available in this game. And, like I said, this is definitely a matchup that, I do have some concern with NYCFC with the way that, in the last couple of games, they haven't really looked that comfortable. I mean, I think the only comfortable victory that they had was against Sporting KC, which they won 3-1. But then, you look at what happened just a couple of hours ago where they barely beat the Dynamo 3-2 at home, and then they lost 4-0 in their previous matches before that. Or not lost 4-0, but lost 3-1 to RSL on the road, where they did not look very good at all, and that they're facing an Atlanta team that has pretty much been unstoppable at home ever since when they kind of got off to a bit of a rough start to start the season. And that, yeah, this is going to be very interesting to see whether or not, if NYCFC can, of course, find the form that they have been doing the stretch between March and June. Like, during that stretch, they were undoubtedly one of the best team in the league, and probably one of the most underrated team in the league, of the fact that they weren't really getting a lot of mention, even though they were doing very well in the league. And, I think this could be a big test for NYCFC to show that whether or not if they're on the same elite level as Atlanta United. And just to make this game even more dramatic, this is also a rematch of last year's Eastern Conference quarterfinal matchup, where Atlanta, of course, was able to beat NYCFC through the 2 legs. So certainly NYCFC want to get some revenge heading into this game against Atlanta United. Now, moving on into the next match is Philly. So the Union are going to be playing against the Dynamo, and the Union is 12-6-7, while the Dynamo is currently 9-3-12. Philly, of course, won 5-1 against DC United away, while Houston, of course, lost that heartbreaking game against NYCFC just a couple of hours ago when they lose 3-2 away. Injury reports for both of these teams. For Philly, Matt Freese and Sergio Santos is going to be questionable coming into this game. And for Houston, the only player that's going to be out for this game is going to be Romel Kyoto, who, of course, was sent off in that game between the Dynamo and NYCFC. And, I think this should be a win for Philly. I mean, coming into that last match against DC, I definitely had a lot of doubts about this Union team, of the fact that, yeah, they have definitely looked very pedestrian lately and look nothing like a top team in the Eastern Conference. And then they blew out DC United and completely blow them out of the door by winning 5-1 against them. Now, the thing about that match that I will say is that Philly did play majority of that game up 10 men, and they were playing against a DC team that were kind of in the same form as what they were used to be, which is kind of very mediocre and not having really a good run. Now, that doesn't mean, like, in this match when they play against Houston, it's another one of those teams that is not having a good run, and that, you expect Philly to, of course, get all 3 points in this game. But I said the same thing about NYCFC, doing very well at home and to get all 3 points against the Dynamo, and they barely did that. So, for the Union, they got to be a little bit careful because, Houston, well, I know that they have not been doing well on the road, and that loss against NYCFC is another example of that. They are kind of showing some sort of fight, and that, in some way they were a bit unlucky not to get at least a point out of that game against NYCFC, and that they definitely are trying to go down with a fight in terms of them potentially making the playoffs or not. So the Union's got to be careful about that, and they got to make sure that this is not going to just be an easy 3 points and that they can just stroll their way to a victory against a very weak Houston Dynamo team. Now, moving on in the next match, and speaking of DC, they are going to be hosting the Galaxy, and the Galaxy currently have a record of 12-1-10, while DC currently have a record of 9-9-7. And this is a matchup between two teams that has been very active in the transfer window and have made some very big signings throughout the transfer window. For DC United, they got a couple of the former Galaxy player with them getting Ola Kamara and Emmanuel Boateng in their squad. Well, LA Galaxy today officially announced that they have secured the free loan deal for Christian Pavone from Boca Junior, and that, it will be very interesting to see if any of those players, of course, is going to be playing in this game. Obviously, from what I heard of the fact that Pavone was actually training with the team before this deal was secure, and that it looked like he might be available in this game for the Galaxy. But, for DC United, I haven't heard about the fact that whether if Boateng or Ola Kamara has already arrived to this team and that they could be ready for this match against the Galaxy. But, certainly in this game, I think besides the fact that both of these teams make some big acquisition during the transfer window, both of these teams want to get all 3 points in this game, because DC, they lost 5-1 against Philly at home, which was an embarrassing loss that they suffer. And, I hope that loss pretty much will wake themselves up and really light up a fire in their squad of the fact that they just got completely ripped apart at home by a superior Union team. Well, the Galaxy, of course, they lost 3-0 against Atlanta away, and that loss was pretty predictable considering the fact that they did not have Zlatan in that game, and that now that they, of course, are going to get Zlatan back into this game, which, by the way, if there wasn't enough storylines in this game, we have a Zlatan versus Wayne Rooney kind of matchup in this game, and that is really the only matchup that we are going to see, because Wayne Rooney, after the end of the season, will be leaving for DC, and that he is going to be heading back to England. So yeah, that would be definitely be interesting to see which of those big players is going to be stepping up for each of their team. And in terms of injuries and suspension for DC United, Russell Canals, Aurel Fisher, and Chris Durkin is going to be out for this game. And Junior Moreno, of course, is suspended because he got sent off in that last game against Philly. While for the Galaxy, the only guy that's going to be out is going to be Roman Alessandrini, and his future with the Galaxy is still very highly in doubt. And that, with this Pavone deal done, we still don't know whether or not, heading into this off season, I think the Galaxy front office has a very big decision to make of the fact that if they're going to keep Christian Pavone, they have to get rid of one of their DP. And are they going to get rid of Roman Alessandrini, which has been a guy that a lot of people think that he will potentially move on, or they're actually going to get rid of Zlatan Ibrahimovic, and Ibra is another player that his contract is going to be expired at the end of the year, alongside with Alessandrini. So yeah, this is definitely a big decision that the Galaxy front office might have to make at the end of the season. But for now, I think they're very happy that they secured the the Pavone deal. And by the way, the other guy that is injured for the Galaxy and questionable in this game is Pontius and Nino coming into this game. But like I said, I think both of these teams really need 3 points, considering the fact that both of these teams are kind of slipping down their respectable conference in their last couple of matches. Like DC right now, they have slipped all the way down to 5th after being in the top 3 for majority of the year. That can be said with the Galaxy too, where they also slipped down to 5th in the Western Conference, and they've been in the top 3 for a majority of the year. So yeah, both of these teams really need 3 points so that they can, of course, propel their seasons again and potentially get into the playoffs. And yeah, we shall see who exactly is going to be that team. Now, moving on into the final match of this weekend is the matchup that, as I mentioned, if it wasn't for Atlanta versus NYCFC, or, you know, with Atlanta versus NYCFC, I think this matchup between LAFC versus the Red Bulls is equally a marquee kind of matchup, because LAFC currently are coming into this game with a record of 16-4-3, which is by far the best record in MLS, and it's safe to say that I think they're going to win the Supporter Shield. Like, nobody is going to catch LAFC in terms of that Supporter Shield race, as they're heading into what would be another season where we see a team break the single-season record mark in terms of points in the regular season. While the Red Bulls, they currently have an 11-4-9 in record. LAFC, of course, won 2-0 against New England away, while the Red Bulls, of course, won 2-0 against TFC at home. Injuries and suspension for LAFC. Perez Almunir is going to be out for this game, and questionable in this game is going to be Gallardo and Cesinaga. Now, for the Red Bulls, Valet is going to be out for this game, while the only guy that is going to be questionable coming into this game is Alex Mule. And yeah, you know, this is definitely a heavyweight kind of matchup, although I think if you want to say who is going to be the big favorites in this game, it's obviously going to be LAFC, because, you know, they're playing at home, which, you know, so far this season at home, it's been pretty much an automatic win for LAFC. Like, I think they're one of the few teams that have yet to lose at home this season. And, you know, they're playing against a Red Bulls team that has been doing pretty well this season on the road, but, you know, they have kind of looked a little bit shaky in their last couple of games. And to face a juggernaut like LAFC, and that you, of course, are facing them in kind of a shaky form, that is definitely not a great time to, of course, face them. And that you're definitely not going to be the favorites coming into this match. And also, with the fact that LAFC have finally secured their third DP and getting Brian Rodriguez, which I'm not quite sure if he's going to be available in this game, because he hasn't really arrived to LA to, of course, play with his team. But he might be available in the future game that LAFC, of course, is playing. Yeah, this team is definitely in for MLS Cup, and there is no doubt that, you know, I really think this season, the only way LAFC does not win MLS Cup this season is that they somehow decided to kind of choke on themselves. Like, the only way that destroyed LAFC chances of reaching MLS Cup is themselves, and that somehow they will have a moment like last year where in kind of a one-off kind of playoff game, they don't bring their best A game in that playoff game, and they, of course, lost in a surprising result. That is the only way I can see LAFC could potentially get knocked out in the Western Conference playoffs. But other than that, I just don't see how this team does not make it to MLS Cup. Like, with what they have been doing this season, which has been just not only historic, but it's been kind of mind-boggling that they are just rolling teams over like with ease throughout this season. So there is no doubt that I think they are the clear favorites of winning MLS Cup. Although, you know, this is definitely a good test to play against a Red Bulls team that, you know, is a playoff team and a team that's going to make the playoffs and could really set themselves in terms of what would it be like when they play against playoff team in the playoffs in the next couple of months. But that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below which of these 6 games that you are looking forward to the most. I'm pretty sure a lot of people are going to say LAFC versus Atlanta or Atlanta versus NYCFC because both of those are marquee matches. But let me know in the comments below, are you excited about these other matches besides the one that is further down on the board? And as always, let me know in the comments below of your prediction of these 6 games. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.